Live studio with the man, the myth, the legend himself, Eric Matei. How are you today, Eric?
Charlene, I'm doing awesome. It's great to be here.
Awesome, awesome. And little backstory: Eric and I are known as innovators or disruptors or both, and we both entered this industry around the same time with different ways of how we were going to facilitate and help the industry. And along the way, we followed each other on each other's journey. But Eric, I am just so incredibly impressed with the amount of ground that you and your team have covered in such a short amount of time. It is so hard to break through in the area of consulting, specifically with independent practices looking to find alternative ways to cold start. How the heck did you do that?
Well, goodness me, where to start? I think it really starts with this, Charlene. Starts with the simple fact that the public health need for vision and medical eye care is big and it's continuing to grow, right? So when you kind of start to look at it from that perspective, then we come to realize, oh my gosh, the market is ripe with opportunity, right? For optometrists, for eye care professionals at any stage of their practice, whether they are wanting to cold start. And by the way, we work with a lot of practices also helping them modernize their systems and operations. And I don't want to give too much away too early. I know we're going to kind of let this conversation flow, but really, Charlene, it all starts with that. It all starts with that. Is that we have this shared understanding, this realization that, again, the public health need for routine vision and medical eye care is big and it continues to grow. And particularly when we look in the realm of optometry and this radical expansion of the scope of care of modern optometry, and optometry being positioned to be that entry point for patients across their lifespan, it's fascinating. And out of that, that's how and where we are having impact, right? And changing lives, changing communities, empowering doctors to go for it. Again, whether it's cold starting a practice, purchasing a practice, or hey, you have that practice you've been running for the last 10 or 20 years, you're ready to take it to the next level, and it's time through modernization and a whole lot of stuff like that.
Well, we have a very long, packed interview to really showcase all of the great ways that you service the industry and will continue as the industry evolves and as the needs evolve. But I do want to kind of take a step back a little bit because this is a really great opportunity for those that are listening. We have diverse audiences, and obviously, we have audiences not only in eye care, but just people that are out there who have come close to the optical metaverse and the omniverse city. And they've said, wait, I can actually learn about my eye care, which is great for our industry because talking about new audiences, there's huge markets that haven't even been touched yet. They don't even need to be disrupted. They need to be helped. But before we get into any of that, I think there's probably a lot of doctors that have been at this for a long time that are completely disconnected with the challenges that new optometrists trying to open a cold start might have. And I'll just toss it to you with this one story. I have a friend of mine who is an optometrist and has been for very long. And I asked him very simply recently, if you were starting your business today as an optometrist, would you feel excited? And he said, no. And I think the reason for that is those that have been around for so long, they see all the challenges. But what I love about you is you're taking this industry from a fresh set of eyes and you're giving these young optometrists hope. Talk about some of the challenges that these, cold start ODs are facing and how are you helping them to surpass those challenges?
Yeah, Charlene, it's a whopper of a question to kick it all off. But in that regard, I mean, and I don't want this to sound too hippie, too kind of hippie about it, but
Oh, we're in a great era for that. Yes, hippie it up.
No, I mean, I think while certainly I would imagine we will eventually in this conversation get into a lot of technical business planning, process planning, optimization, budgets, and stuff like that. Where it really all starts, where I always encourage people to start is, man, like, what's your vision? You know, like, like, why do you really want to do this? Truly, I mean, I can tell you for me what it is. For me, it's about impacting communities. And you guys, anybody that we work with, anyone that knows me in my professional life and my personal life, that's what this is all about. Hey, that's how and why it's been magical, this magical undertaking and discovery, realizing that, it's the emerging practice owners who are cold starting practices, the emerging practice owners who are purchasing practices, they need the support the most, right? But it starts with really discovering that vision. So in that regard, what I generally like to do, and when having some early conversations or getting the opportunity to have a platform like this to just kind of speak openly about things is, and perhaps I'm speaking to an individual, perhaps there's someone out there in the audience right now who is ready to hear this. And it's about this, right? What do you really want to do and why do you want to do it? Truly, you know, the fact is there are so many paths, and now more than ever before. I mean, look, let's face it. And I know we're going to do a deep dive into the technology here momentarily, but living in a time where so many things are at our fingertips, and that immediate gratification, that dopamine kick, with so many things being at our fingertips, I think it's important as someone is embarking on this journey of entrepreneurship, cold starting or purchasing an optometry practice, or whatever the case may be, right? Because I realize also we probably have audience out there that are not necessarily in eye care, right? But no matter what you're looking to do, right? Really identify what is it that you truly want to do and why do you want to do it? And if you can always kind of come back to that, come back to that core, these foundational kind of core values and drivers, man, that's going to be the guiding light, right? Because it starts from vision. And you can't get into anything else until you have that vision set. And it's only from there then that you get into developing your process. And then when the going gets tough and the tough gets going, persevering through it all, right? So I would say that's where it really truly all starts, Charlene, is what is the vision. Now, again, we look at it very much this I guess presumably the more hippie approach, although I'd like to make that kind of the cool approach, the approach that everyone wants to embrace, right?
That is modern.
Because everyone
That is
wins.
what's modern.
Absolutely. Listen. It's. I mean, at the end of the day, do you want to build a house of cards? Do you want to build a sustainable alternative optometry? Yeah. Or just alternative living, alternative entrepreneurship. Once again, like I said, it's fascinating when I look to my professional mentors and wisdom they have shared with me about, Eric, do it the right way, do it the sustainable way, right? You can quickly build that house of cards, and then in an instant it can all come tumbling down. Or you can take your time, grounded in your vision, grounded in processes. And I know the guy in the blue shirts tuned in, right? Bruce Carnahan's tuned in here. It's all about process, right? But it starts with vision, then process. And then, when the going gets tough, the perseverance. But you realize that if you're truly connected with that vision and you believe in the processes that you're bringing, that perseverance almost kind of comes naturally,
Well, the only reason I'm chiming in, and I've been working really hard on my discipline as an interviewer, because you gave me so many good nuggets there. I'm going to forget them. But a couple of things you said that I think are really important to come back to, because I think sometimes you take these things for granted. First of all, I don't think a lot of people refer to eye doctors as entrepreneurs. But let's face it, any business, whether you're a medical business, a physical business, a retail business, a metaverse business, it does not matter. You need to be an entrepreneur. And there is a very specific skill set required to be an entrepreneur. That is either just a talent that you have, or it is a skill you better learn, or it is a person you better hire. Okay. So the fact that you're identifying in early stages of these conversations with these eye doctors that they can be an entrepreneur is amazing. The other thing is, think about it like this. Somebody who's coming in new, they can look at all of the existing models that exist today and discover the gaps and specifically create a vision to fill those gaps and talk about some of the, talk about two things, because I don't want to set you up too much, because I want your organic kind of insights here. We always hear the word differentiation. So I'm sure somewhere in there you have a spin on differentiation, how to make sure that you're not doing a Me Too type of thing, because that's very dangerous to do today unless you have like a multi-million-dollar budget. And also in this differentiation, How do you talk to doctors about how to find that niche while still being authentic?
Yeah. Wow. That's a another power. That's only question number two, Charlene. You're like these landmines of questions. Um, but in that regard, I'll say this, and actually, I think to just put it in practical terms, first and foremost, um, promote what you want to attract.
Love
Right?
that. That's
Promote
amazing.
what you want to attract. And this is very interesting right now in eye care, given the role of these mass consolidations across eye care, right? The mass consolidations of the supply chain and managed care, particularly as it pertains to the managed vision care plans, okay? But regardless, you can really look at this from kind of all angles of the business, right? Whether it's, hey, I want to be the best primary care family, primary care, vision care doctor I can, or if you want to do, hey, we want to go full medical, you know, the whole enchilada, full medical care, what have you, or anywhere in between, or any combination of that, right? And this isn't even get into this amazing world of growing specialties in modern eye care, what
Mhm.
have you. But getting back to it, this whole differentiation piece, okay? How do you do it? Simply promote the services and solutions that you want to attract, right? So a really good example would be this. A really good example would be this. Um, are you attracting eye exams? Are you attracting people who seek an eye exam? Or are you attracting people who seek an eye doctor? And think about that for a moment, right? Like, so two starkly different presentations. If we're talking about marketing and differentiation, two starkly different ways you'll show up and present. But I would invite all of the doctors out there that are tuning in that are themselves thinking about what can I do to grow my practice, or perhaps you're thinking that you're on this path to cold start purchase a practice, right? And you're probably wondering, like many folks, man, is now the time, like with these vision plans, with all this competitive stuff going on with corporate chains, hospital networks, private equity, with online solutions now being available, do I really want to enter the space? Well, I will say this. If you're trying to compete with everyone else saying, are you looking for an eye exam? Come to me for your eye exam. Well, then, yeah, you're going to have a tough road ahead. But if you present and promote what you want to attract, that being folks who are looking for a relationship with an eye doctor, perhaps looking for that specialty scope of care that you offer, perhaps looking for that amazing optical. By the way, Charlene, I always love you. I always love your specs. Um, so
Have to
so so so
represent,
that
right?
yeah, absolutely. So that I would say number one, that's your differentiator. Simply
So,
promote what type of people you want to attract. What are they looking for? What do you want to attract? If you want to attract people who are simply looking for an eye exam, then you are embarking in the more often than not, I say more often than not. If you're competing for people who are looking for an eye exam, then you may be setting yourself up for a race to the bottom.
now
Okay.
I see a comment here from Dr. Rena Jacobin, and I don't know if you know this, but she's actually going to be starting her own practice. She was excited to finally reach out to you after all this time, and I'm so proud of her for taking that leap. But she brings up a very important point, 2 points. It was a point I forgot earlier. So, mindset. Please, let's make sure that we cover your position on how to understand what the mindset and the sustainable kind of perseverance that your candidates for this may have so that they can have a realistic threshold of the amount of money and time and patience they're going to need. But on top of that, Dr. Jacobin brings up a very good point. Some providers are so passionate about the care that they forget about the profit and this profit over patients mindset, which, maybe some doctors feel guilty about making money. I know some never want to use the word sell. And obviously, you have to sell eyeglasses to profit when you can't call it anything else. I know I'm giving you too many things mixed in here, but you're really good at just fluidly taking them and threading them through in a conversation. We're talking about, mindset and profit, passion alignment. Talk a little bit about how you approach that with your clients.
Absolutely. I That's a really great question, Charlene, because I feel strongly that right now is a pivotal time, not only in eye care, y'all, but really just like think about economy, think about society in general, right?
So
I
important.
think right now is a really pivotal time and a remarkable opportunity to, well, bring people in.
Hmm.
And in the context of that, and I think what Dr. Jacobin is getting to, and by the way, we discover this all the time in meeting amazing doctors across the country that are looking to cold start, purchase, or take their practice to the next level, right? And there is that internal struggle, and I think, and I'm not a doctor, but I could, knowing many thousands across the country, getting to know many of them very well over many years. No, I can totally relate to and understand that inner struggle, right? Of, okay, we have a patient, we want to take care of the patient. They're here for healthcare. Okay. We also have a business. And in that regard, I think there's two comments that I want to toss out here, right? One is the degree to which, well, and to use the words that my good friend Bruce Carnahan dropped. As a matter of fact, just recently he joined me on Access and dropped this. He talks about the collaborative index or the collaboration index.
Oh,
And
I
what he's
like that.
referring to here, what he's referring to here is the collaborative index. The way those of us around the industry might also know it is per patient revenue. Now think about that for a moment. Think about that for a moment, right? Now I am with you. Talking about per patient revenue, it is almost kind of gross to talk about, right? I mean, we're providing healthcare, and then we're talking about how much money we're making in that arrangement. But I think it's important to consider, as we're talking about collaborative index, right? Really, the fact that that collaborative index is a direct measure of the degree to which that person really wants what you got, right? So it's like going back when we kicked off the conversation regarding differentiate. Are you attracting people who want an eye exam, or are you attracting people who want an eye doctor? Attracting people wanting an eye exam, yeah, you're probably going to have to sell on elective diagnostics. You're going to have to sell on any sort of elected or non-covered services. You're likely going to have to sell on every product and material element, from optical to contact lenses to nutraceuticals, dry eye, OTC, whatever the case may be, right? Again, if you're attracting people who are simply looking for an eye exam, then you are going to have to sell. And in so doing, well, you may or may not like it. But if you're attracting people who want what you have, then you're no longer selling. You're providing this to your community.
Perfect.
And that's where that collaborative index will go from, routine exam only with whatever pittance the vision plan tossed my way, to, wow, these patients love everything I've got and they're saying yes to everything I got. And by the way, Charlene, this is something that this applies at any stage of the practice life cycle. So just as much as we're, we've got audience members out there who are, early stages cold start, maybe they just launched. Heck, maybe this is their first exploration of even thinking about it. In which case, if that's who you are, just keep on keeping on, keep on keeping on. You got us in your corner, right? But also for practices who are established, because one of the fascinating things is going on right now, as we're going back to this radically growing public health need for vision medical eye care. Remember what we're talking about? The scope of care of modern optometry is gigantic.
Yeah.
So right now we're also seeing established practices who no longer want to be just, oh, you need an eye exam, come see me. They want to expand that scope. They want to add the specialty. Perhaps they want to do it by adding an associate, right? But in so doing, it all ties back to, if you are presenting and differentiating around what makes your practice uniquely your practice, then there's going to be very little selling going on in there, because people are going to be coming in seeking that, right?
Absolutely. And a couple of points that I want to set you up to talk more about because it's deeper and it's more specific than what we're. I know the color and shade around what you're talking about, but not everybody has that depth of insight. So when we talk about well, let's first talk about quality over quantity, because one thing that people really respect and they really appreciate is being listened to. Most eye care providers who give eye exams only are making so little per patient revenue that they can't afford to spend time with each individual patient. So I'm sure if you are communicative with your community through social media, through the emails, through the channels, through the newsletters you have, and explaining your mission, even if that needs to change and say, look, we're not no longer taking these plans anymore. And here's why we want to spend more time with you and listening to you. I don't think people will care about the profit that you're making because they'll understand that they're making an investment in the most valuable gift that they have, which is their sight. So I think really forgetting about the language of selling or buying or anything, understand that vision is something that cannot be replaced, even with all the amazing AI tools that are out there right now, at least not yet. So, talk a little bit about that, and then maybe you can transition into something that might be a little more exciting for our audience, which is the rapid transformation of all industries, specifically eye care, with new technologies like AI that modernized practices that are just starting or rebooting can leverage to become these truly, not just use the word modern, but really own that. Because right now, modern means something very specific, and you cannot put that label on anymore. People understand what modern means. They're seeing artificial intelligence, they're seeing these types of technologies. If you say you're modern, you have to be modern. So, talk a little bit about that kind of subject.
Absolutely, absolutely. And on that note, to I guess kind of close off that whole profit topic, right? The other thing I want to toss out, Charlene, take a guess. Take a guess at what chunk of emerging practice owners that we work with. So by emerging practice owner, I'm referring to doctors who are cold starting a practice or purchasing a practice. How many of them do you believe, just take a shot in the dark guess, but how many of them do you think really want to take care of their employees and want to be able to offer employee benefits and want to be able to do all these really cool, amazing things in the context of a small independent optometry practice?
I would say 100%.
Yeah, pretty much everybody. Pretty much everybody.
Yeah, we have a very
And
human industry. I mean, I'm really blown away at even through the pandemic. I mean, you're talking about people think that doctors are rich. Well, optometrists are not mostly rich, okay? And during the pandemic, I was just blown away at all of these practices that struggled, but they still wanted to take care of their staff because a lot of them never got that support. They still haven't, and it was really, really inspiring.
absolutely. And why do I bring it up? Because the degree to which a practice owner can really take care of their people and the degree to which a practice owner can really contribute to those philanthropic efforts that are closest, nearest to them, whether that's something local or whether it's something on a global scale, right? Whatever that may be, you come to realize the more profitable you can be, and please let this be a message. I want this message to go out to everyone out there that is looking to cold start or purchase a practice, or perhaps you already own a practice and you're questioning profitability in patient care. The more profitable you can be, the better you can serve everyone. Think about it, right? The more profitable you can be, the better you can take care of your team with that competitive pay and those employee benefits and that living wage, above that living wage that we all want to provide, okay? The more profitable your business can be, the more you can give back to your community, to your profession, right? The more profitable your practice can be, the more you can then invest in technology and resources to better expand that scope of care to your patients. So you come to realize it all ties back to this profitability, right? So, okay. So to leave the profitability piece and now jump into I think that because you asked two questions in that last question, you asked two. One was about profitability, right? And then the other has to do with, and I think now kind of shifting gears in our conversation to what it's all about in business these days, truly. It's about sustainability. It's about sustainability. And as far as this whole concept of modern practice management, right? What is this all about, right? So modern PM, it's an approach to practice management. It's a progressive approach to practice management that emphasizes proactive leadership and decision-making to achieve sustainability in 6 key areas of a practice, right? Now, the key areas are going to be profitability, your team, your strategy, your digital presence, analytics, and that transition. Now, you can learn and read far more about the stuff at acrinos.com. I'm not going to do a deep dive into that right now. But what you do come to realize is, and Charlene, I think you know this as well, right? Been around the industry many, many years. You know many doctors. You understand practice economics, the ins and outs, and everything, right? But you come to realize that any and all opportunity in the practice and any and all constraints in the practice apply to one of those 6 areas that I just mentioned. Again, profitability, team, strategy, digital. And when I'm saying digital, I'm talking clinic to commerce, right? Analytics and the transition. And it never fails. I mean, we could go through scores and scores and scores. And I think our viewers out there who are they themselves in practice ownership, if you do own a practice, think about what that top 3 things are right now, like the tip top of your list. You probably realize that kind of ties back to one of those 6 things, So incredible time. Now, as it were then, if we're talking about achieving sustainability in these 6 key areas, this is where you'll hear me say, and I say this, and I'll continue to say this, you don't need a consultant, you need a modern practice. I'll say it again. You don't need a consultant. You need a modern practice. Now, again, that's where you can learn more about what we do and our approach to this stuff. Because people are always like, "Oh, consultant. Oh, which are your consultant?" It's like, yeah,
what I'm hearing is it's not just about hiring somebody that can put a Band-Aid on a bleeding wound, but it's about hiring somebody that wants to truly fix your problem, even though they understand that means you may at some point no longer need their services. And that's where the sustainability comes in. So, your sustainability as a consultant isn't in making your clients so reliant on you that they can't grow and evolve and eventually become self-reliant. It's about setting them up to succeed in a way that builds their business so that they can become self-reliant and scalable and grow without constantly bailing water out of the back of the canoe. That's kind of what I'm hearing when you say that. Is that where you're coming from?
Absolutely. Yes. Absolutely. Okay. And as a matter of fact, and I know I'm seeing some of our viewers out there, and Jen
it's blowing
Denham,
up. I can't even address everything. It's so great. Thank you guys for the engagement. It's amazing.
I was going to say, Jen Denham, she's CRO over at Optify. They're doing some far out things with e-commerce, online optical. Same thing. And we talk about this all the time. It's like, it's about implementing modern solutions. Katie Dempsey, I see Katie's tuned in. She's the GM over at 1284. Amazing. Wow. Amazing stuff going on. But we were talking about this just a couple months ago at Seco up in Atlanta, Seco 100 Years, which, by the way, that was absolutely awesome. But we were talking about this very thing, right? The degree to which it's about modernizing the practice, right? Because that is what will then deliver long-term sustainable results, right? It's not short-term. It's about taking the time to take a step back through analysis, through stakeholder-centric strategy, and through effective and impactful implementation. And you can look at any facet of the practice and follow that little rubric, that little process, and apply it to that 6-point rubric that I just laid out, the modern PM rubric. Those are your, that's it. That's it. As a matter of fact, and by the way, the viewers, if you want to kind of explore more of this, head on over to Krinos.com. Check out, if you're early in your career, if you're the emerging practice owner, head over to Krinos.com. Check out the Cold Start Corner. You'll see where these concepts come to surface through your lens as the emerging practice owner, cold starting or purchasing a practice. And likewise, if you're an established practice owner, you'll see where these elements are presented to your lens at the Krinos Access, where, again, amazing visitors. Yes, heck, Charlene, you were on Access a few months back as well. Hey, so look, while we're going through this, I do notice a comment here from someone about most new doctors today out of school can't afford to open on their own. Private equity is taking over her. So I want to be sure we address that. But Charlene, I'll kick it back over to you as far as like next question or stuff. Or if we want to start talking about specifically that.
And the reason I give you 2 or 3 points is you're very good at remembering them, and they're related. But I just want to give you the opportunity to kind of just, go through it. These are 2 questions that are somewhat unrelated, but I'm going to make them related because I want to give you the opportunity to talk about both of them, and I don't want to miss one. We simply cannot, NOT, capital exclamation point, have this conversation about modern practice management without talking about the cross-generational shift that is happening. You simply cannot rinse and repeat the old models of eye care for Millennial and Gen Z and now the Gen Alpha audiences that you have used forever for baby boomers. There is a reason the predominant age bracket for independent eye care professionals is over the age of 50, okay? And in modernizing, you really have to get ready to listen to audiences that you may not understand and you may not relate to. That's part 1 of my question. Part 2 of my question is, I believe that you lead with leadership. And being an early adopter of something like the Optical Metaverse, who is sponsoring this broadcast with you today, is really, really, really an example of leadership that you have shown as one of the first real people in this industry that has said, you know what, this is new, it's scary, it's unfamiliar, but I'm going to take a leap of faith and I'm going to try and get into this world. A year ago, since then, I guess I wasn't so crazy because the metaverse has all of a sudden become a thing. And it is mostly a thing for this younger generation who is going to select this place, this series of platforms in substitute of the traditional social media platforms, which are still a challenge for eye care professionals. And they're going to go off the grid into metaverse land and become even more challenging to communicate with. So my 2-parted question about cross-generational modern practice management and leading with leadership is, how has this journey for you, now that this opportunity is on your radar, given you insight into how to continue to lead your clients as they want to continue to modernize and evolve in this rapidly evolving landscape we find ourselves in?
Yeah. I think the first thing there was something you mentioned there. You were like going off the grid into the metaverse, and that's really funny because I always think, as I'm sure most folks do, like off the grid means what? All right, see ya. We're going in backcountry. You know what I mean? Or down
There's
here.
No tracking there yet. You can't, you can see everybody everywhere. The metaverse has that's the reason they go there. They don't want to be, constantly getting spammed with notifications. They don't want to have to turn off their cookies. There's no tracking in the metaverse at this point.
It's fast. And by the way, and Charlene, so now you're getting into area that, I mentioned we got a couple adolescents who just wrapped up the school year, and mentioning to him that we were going to be going live with this, and our son, and he's pretty far out. I could see him probably showing me around the metaverse at some point in time, a bit deeper into it. But it really is fascinating because I think you're hitting the nail on the head with the fact that there's very much this shift we're witnessing, right? This generational shift. I think. Well, heck, look, I remember, and Charlene, I think you and I had discussed this before, right? Like, I remember when I was in high school working on a 3.5-inch floppy, and it was in college when USBs came out. I remember going to college. That was the first time I had an email address. You know what I mean? So it's kind of, by the way, high school class of 2000 right here for all y'all out there wondering. But where I'm going with this is that it's fascinating to consider that how tech current this generation is, this Zennial generation, this micro generation that I'm a part of, which I think is like 77 to 83 birth year, this weird little micro gen. Either that or somebody coined that name in hopes of selling a bunch of publications, but whatever. Whatever this gen is, so I believe the definition of that generation is that we knew what it was to have a rotary phone, right? So, like, you remember high school talking to
You couldn't even use it during a
on the
lightning
phone.
storm. You were afraid of getting zapped
Yeah, right.
by the lightning.
Right. Have to share with your siblings, like, oh, who gets the phone first tonight? And then the other one would set the timer in the kitchen, and a minute ding, it's like, oh man, got to get on the phone.
Oh boy, we're really dating ourselves.
But getting back to it, but it really is fascinating though to think of like how rapidly all this stuff is occurring. And in that regard, it's important to consider how we are connecting, and to use, I know Jen Denham, a huge guru of this, definitely reach out to her, anyone to go deeper into it as well. This whole omnichannel. I know, Charlene, you and I have discussed it as well, right? Like omnichannel and the fact that there's touches, what's fascinating about omnichannel. See, Acrinos, we're not omnichannel. Why? We're a remote team. I'm based out of New Orleans. We serve clients literally all over the country, soon to be all over North America. We actually have our first Canadian clients looking like they're going to be signing on with us. But that being said, this is not omnichannel. Omnichannel is a modern optometry practice, though, because why? You have that brick and mortar element, and you have that digital connection. Right. So as it were, then when we look at the big opportunity here for practices, remember, let's think back to our 6-point rubric of modern practice management, that digital piece, and that digital piece from clinic to commerce, as I like to say, digital from clinic to commerce. And now we're getting into a whole, and we're not going into the weeds and any of this stuff. We'd be on here for days, right? But we get into the world of digital serving both the patient and the people and the practice from clinic to commerce, right? And by the way, who are patient people in clinic, patient people in practice? That's our 3 stakeholders. So we want to be sure that everything that's being done serves all of them, right? We would never want to make a decision or implement something in the practice that would be detrimental to any one of those 3 parties or marginalize any one of those 3 parties, right? Like you wouldn't want to, and we can look at it in many different regards. So as it were, then digital clinic to commerce, thinking the degree to which digital is going to make life better for your people, going to absolutely delight your patients, and in so doing, drive performance of the practice, right? So as it then pertains to the metaverse and the optical metaverse, this is very much on the patient side. This is very much, think the public-facing side. Think of that presence as being part of that omnichannel presence. Is it a substitute for coming to see you in person and coming to your practice? Heavens no. Might it be at some future date and time? Who knows, y'all? I mean, think of Alien, think of Total Recall, think of all those other movies that came out, like, again, we're dating ourselves here, aging ourselves. But as it were, we don't have to worry. Whatever. We'll see where things are going when things go that way. But I will say this. Well, how many practices these days don't have a website?
Too many.
Now, notice I didn't say.
And let's count websites that were gifted to them as not having a website, right?
Well, that's what I was going to say. Is like, okay, so now many more practices than say 10 years ago. Many more of them have websites. Now, the degree to which those websites are current and modern, that's a different story, right?
There's
if you,
so
if
much,
you,
and we're
if
not going to get into that because if we open up that Pandora's
absolutely,
box, we'll never shut it.
sure. But by the way, that's just one teeny tiny little example, because the same example could be, some of these tasks that we're asking people to do. It's fascinating to consider that typically folks are not leaving practices or leaving employers because of pay. It's generally not pay. No, it's process, it's task. What are we asking people to do? Are they truly like invigorated and
Oh,
enthralled and excited? Are you? I'll ask anyone in the audience out there: would you be excited to face your day and go to work and do your thing if all you did all day was answer the phone and sit on hold with insurance companies and try to fumble your way through this or that old process, old tasks? When meanwhile now there's new different ways to do it. I mean, I think the simplest little example might be, the rotary phone versus, well, these high powered machines that we now hold to our heads. Hopefully they're not like sending weird airwaves through us and stuff. But getting back to it, it's really think that modernization. So this is where, and whether that modernization applies to digital presence and metaverse, right? Or whether that modernization is a workflow, the degree to which scope of care has been modernized, the degree to which much equipment has been modernized, the degree to which a lot of these materials have been modernized that doctors are now using to treat and care for patients. I believe that then is the good reminder. Well, okay, if we're modernizing all these things, then let's now look at our processes and perhaps that digital presence of other things, right? And see to what degree are those current with the times. Look,
And
if go ahead.
no,
Go
no, no.
ahead.
You're making some really good points, but when you talk about omni-channel, I think if you were to ask 30 different people in the industry what omni-channel is, they would all have a completely different way of describing it. And even outside of the industry, I don't think we ever really had a time to see a chance to see omni-channel fully materialize to what it was about to become. Because right around the time that omni-channel was emerging as the dominant way that marketing companies could facilitate this customer journey by learning all the different channels and how to navigate the person through them and communicate with them and drive them from one place to the next, right around the time that that was a thing, that's when the pandemic happened. And during the pandemic, the same channels that had previously been used to market to people, to sell to people, were being used to communicate with people. And that probably would have happened organically anyway. But these same channels that we're looking at as commerce channels, which we already mentioned that a lot of eye care professionals don't feel comfortable with the word selling. So that probably means that any channel that they associate with commerce, they might not feel as relevant to them. But these channels, whether they be digital, social, omni-channel, however you want to characterize them, they are used for three main purposes, whether you like them or not. And when I say these channels are used for these purposes, I mean the audience is using them for these purposes. So if you haven't learned to use them, then you can't do these three things effectively with those audiences, which are communicate, community build, and commerce. So that's your tools, your toolbox for the future is developing modern communication, modern community building, modern commerce. And the possibilities are so endless that it is a disservice to you as a practice to not, going back to one of the early points you make, realign your vision with the tools that you're using and make sure that you're not leaving some low-hanging fruit on the table. Most of these tools are free. It's free to answer a message on Facebook. It's free to, participate in LinkedIn and learn about the professionals in your community that might really appreciate this modern care that you provide, not only for themselves, but for their employees. So, talk a little bit about social media, and you are omni-channel. Let's not forget the thing that is always physical is you. So even if you don't have a brick and mortar business, you're still omni-channel, even though you're using all of these other, and you are very omni-channel. Never take that away from yourself. And I think Jen chimed in and said the same thing. Omni-channel just basically means that you understand that all of the channels that connect to you are connected. So you can't have a different message in Instagram than what you have in Facebook. And please, for the love of God, stop using stock photos of optometrists that are not you. Okay? Just don't do anything. Seriously, put nothing. Your social media channels are for delivering information to the followers that are using them, and also for kind of helping somebody who's trying to decide if you're the right practice for them, what your culture is. And this is really a great time for you to just get really authentic. Less is more. There's no reason to post 100 times a week if you don't have enough content. It's better to just post as little as you need to express your authenticity. Over to you, Eric. What do you think about that?
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And what I was going to say in that regard, Charlene, is to consider, well, look, 90% of patients, digital is part of that patient journey. That's it. I mean, and it's kind of, so in that regard, that's where, well, I mean, look, y'all, I mean, launched this company 2 years ago with a big idea, with a big dream.
2 years.
Knowing who I knew 2 years ago, Acrinos party of one. Now we're a team of 7. We have clients. What I think we're going to be crossing like in nearly 30 states now. We have clients in something like 30 states. It's crazy. We're filling up the map. It's awesome. But getting back to it, that would have never been had I just stayed in my little bubble down here in New Orleans. You know what I mean? I mean, I love the
a lot of fun.
It's a fun bubble. It's a fun bubble. But really, all kidding aside, getting back to it, and this, I think, Charlene, this is a really cool kind of full circle conversation we've had, right? Because we kicked it all off. With discovering your vision. And whether you're new to this and you're cold starting, you're purchasing a practice, or whether you're an established practitioner, you may be an established. We have doctors that have been practicing for 30 and 35 years who are reaching out to us because they're like, you know what? I discovered my vision. I'm ready to do it.
Wow.
I mean, really think about that. It's cool. It's exciting. It's exciting to think that we are helping that vision come to reality, because let's not kid ourselves. Everyone is busy. If you own a practice, you're busy. If you're looking to cold start or purchase a practice, you're busy. You're working 40 hours a week, and then you're trying to plan your business and get into a lot of things that you don't have much experience with, and you got a lot of questions with, and you want to be sure you're making the right decisions. We are talking about an investment here, right? But that being said, it all ties back to your vision and the degree to which, and to kind of pull everything full circle, the degree to which I would invite everyone to attract those, put out there to the universe, put out to your community what you want to attract. And if you can do that, and you can do that on all fronts, you can do that in person, in brick and mortar, with smile on your face, seeing patients, and you can do that digitally, both in a passive manner through your practice website, and a ton of functionality you can build in there to delight the experience, and then also in an active manner through that social media presence and engaging out there. Will absolutely set you up for remarkable things, you know. And by the way, this is very much a theme that you'll come to realize, that those that you look up to, and we all have folks we look up to. I've got plenty of folks I look up to, right? Absolutely. And you'll come to kind of see like, wow, you know, these are kind of some of the themes, kind of some of these rudimentary elements that, you know, hey, 30 years ago, we probably would have been talking about different things. 30 years ago, we may have been talking about, like, you know, postcards, circulars, and cold calling. But these days, we don't do that, you know? Was there another question asked in there? Did I just
No,
lose
no,
my thought?
I
Okay.
think you do a really good job taking a question and just really really kind of thoroughly answering it, because sometimes these are very complex topics. I mean, when you've got a practice who has an aha moment after 30, 40 years of practice, there's probably a lot of gaps they need to close. And, it's very overwhelming. It's like drinking water from the fire hose. But unfortunately, we're at a point in time where the evolution of the world is moving so much faster than it ever has before. We just simply don't have the time to allow any eye care professional to be passive for any reason. Because if every eye care professional, corporate, independent, franchise, or what have you, if all of them were prepared from a very modern standpoint, we still wouldn't have enough of the support that we need, because there's a reason that there's a majority of the population, especially this younger population, that's literally going blind right before our very eyes. I want to come full circle to the word sustainability. This is not a buzzword. This is an extremely important word. It's not just strictly boiling down to environmentally what you're doing to be responsible, but it's really about how do you look at what you're doing now and identify metrics that allow you to put a baseline in place so that you can measure your progress to where you should be, so you can be proactive if, God forbid, you're not sustainable, because that's why we see practices fail, or sell their practice before they really haven't fulfilled the needs of their community properly. You will be here on July 7th through 9th with the Optical Metaverse representing Acrinos. We, because we believe in sustainability, have selected people to be a part of it. I reached out to you. That was the reason why. I think the modern practices of tomorrow are definitely going to need a champion like you. And just talk a little bit about what somebody can expect if they're coming to visit you during the Optical Metaverse event, and what sort of services, because I know we talk about consulting, but this is a very broad topic. Who is your ideal customer, and who should be reaching out to you and coming to, meet you at that event if they want to learn more?
Fantastic. Yeah, yeah. Thank you for that. And by the way, Charlene, thank you so much for the opportunity to connect here. Really, really excited to get this stuff out there. So as far as who we are, what we're all about, look, we are all about independent eye care. I mean, and by the way, where does that stem from? We believe that private practice is going to save healthcare. And y'all, this doesn't just apply to eye care, doesn't just apply to optometry. This is through and through every specialty in healthcare as we know it. You see, as we've witnessed this mass consolidation of healthcare with the role of managed care, supply chain conglomerates, and consolidations with how care is being delivered, we're seeing the results of that is what? We're seeing our provider burnout rates are hitting an all-time high. The cost of care continues to climb. And the overall patient experience and quality of care of healthcare in the United States is on the skids. Now, when you segment out private practice and you measure private practice on those same three metrics, you'll notice that the rate of provider burnout rate in private practice is a fraction of national benchmark. The cost of care to both patients and the system is lower, and the overall patient experience and quality of care in private practice is radically superior. So
Wow.
that's where this all comes from. So what are we here to do? We are here to empower independent private practice eye care to make it happen now and in the future. And we work in three key lanes. One is emerging practice owners that are looking to cold start a practice. We've got resources through planning, development, and launch. I said it before, I'll say it again, y'all. You don't need a consultant, you need a modern practice. And that's what we are all about through each phase of that process. Area 2, right? Private practice will save healthcare. So it's about independent transitions. So this is empowering up and coming doctors who want to take that step into practice ownership by way of purchasing a practice. If you thought cold starting a practice was complicated, oh, wow. There's a lot of moving parts when you're going to purchase a practice, right? And also in that vein, it's exciting in that, I think let's face it. And this is where I'll say something outside of just eye care, because we're seeing, private equity is getting into every industry out there. Private equity is buying up arborists. Private equity is buying up bike shops. Private equity, obviously, as we know, is in eye care and dentistry, what have you. Private equity is everywhere. And we've learned a lot from private equity. Okay. And one of the things I think we've learned in private equity is that I believe the current generation of doctors are looking and realizing they learned a lot from the outgoing generation of doctors. And there appears to be this excitement and this energy around maintaining independence and building legacies, right? And it's through that we've got involved in organizations like GRT Summit. Check out what we're doing at GRT Summit, grtsummit.com. Amazing stuff. It's about independent eye care, independent optometry. So that being said, we're seeing this resurgence of doctors who they don't want to rely on private equity. They don't want to be waiting around. And by the way, y'all, I mean, I don't know how close you keep your finger to the pulse of that stuff, but if private equity is your exit plan, I don't know if that's sustainable. I'm not a gambler, but if I were a gambler, I don't know if I'd be putting money on private equity buying me out when I'm ready to get out, unless you're ready to get out like right now and you have an offer like right now, right? But getting back to it, as far as the lanes we're in, we're all about independent private practice, cold starting, independent private practice transitions, empowering emerging practice owners to make that purchase and make that purchase on terms that's a win-win for all parties involved. And likewise, for established practices, there are many established practices out there that realize that their practice has kind of gotten away from them. And what I mean by gotten away from them is that there's a lot of uncontrollables, a lot of these exogenous factors that are kind of forcing their way into the practice and taking upon themselves to make more and more decisions on behalf of the practice, right? And again, this all goes back to what we're seeing with this consolidation in healthcare, the role of managed care, how care is being delivered, the role of the supply chain in eye care, right? But it's across all of these things. It's across all of these things that we discover, and we get a lot of doctors reach out to us that are like, hey, I'm 10 years in, and I really know what I want to do. These last 10 years became to the tail wagging the dog. I'm ready to get back to taking control of my practice.
Thank
This
God.
is my vision. And I'm ready to bring my vision to reality. So it's exciting in that established practice owners, the same thing, reacquainting themselves, or for some of them, for the very first time, discovering what that vision is. Hey, I've been practicing for 15 years, and we've been doing it kind of the way everybody else is doing it, relying on these managed care plans, these vision plans. And yeah, we make all right money and stuff, but I want to take my practice in another direction. And there's no resources out there to really cater to me and empower me to implement what needs to be implemented to achieve that sustainability, right? And this is where we get into process, that analyze, strategize, implement, this beautiful, lovely, it's a very organic process. And you can learn about all this stuff and more. Look, head on over to Akrinos.com. And I think I'll kind of leave it with this.
Yeah.
Head on over to Akrinos.com, right? If you're an emerging practice owner, go to the Cold Start Corner, tons of resources, free calculators to play with. I mean, a ton of great stuff. By the way, I did notice a comment earlier about the cost of cold starting a practice. We got a lot of great content out there, including some simulators here at the site. But I mean, we're helping doctors cold start anywhere from, 350,000, 350, 400,000, all the way up through 650,000. Because the fact is also a lot of things have changed. One of the biggest of which is real estate and build out costs, construction costs. Okay. But again, a lot of great content over at Akrinos.com on some of these intricacies. But so for those that are looking to cold start purchase and practice, check out the Cold Start Corner at Akrinos.com. And if you're an established practice owner, ready to take your practice to the next level, want to really, really reclaim your ownership in your practice and implement that, go check out Akrinos Access. A lot of really, really great content there. And be sure to follow us on the socials. We're very active in LinkedIn, Facebook. Prefer LinkedIn. As a matter of fact, if you're not in LinkedIn, hop on over to LinkedIn. LinkedIn is where it's at. And if you're an optometrist if you own a practice or you're looking to get into practice ownership, LinkedIn is where all the business conversation goes down, right? Facebook is fun for keeping in touch with people. But as far as wanting like really progressive, forward-thinking, innovative, modern practice management solutions and concepts, the dialogue is happening in LinkedIn. Um,
So, just to kind
I
of
guess it's a
piggyback on what you're saying, so we can wrap it up, but also do it to be continued. I think even you, Eric, were a little surprised coming into this format that we set up a channel just for you, and we had this conversation at the beginning of this. If we were in a LinkedIn live or a YouTube live or a Facebook live, it would begin and end at that live. But you have done an amazing job building a community that I know wants to stay connected with you. And that goes right from the suppliers that support you down to the optometrists that want to hire you and the optometrists that have hired you, maybe even opticians that say, hey, maybe I could do something like this and have a more profitable, sustainable practice or business for my optical boutique. But we are going to be turning on the fire hose full blast in July 7th through 9th. Prepare to be completely stunned by the gravity of information that we are going to be providing you. And these people that are coming are going to need a safe haven to come back to. And this will be it. I anticipate in the future doing more sessions like this where we can talk about efficiency, artificial intelligence, learning about these new modern audiences, how to navigate cultural diversity. These are all extremely important topics that aren't even touched on at all of the modern and amazing, conversations that are happening at our larger events. And we want to be that resource through this channel with you as our co-pilot to really provide that navigation that all business owners and people that are really professionals within this industry need. Do you accept that challenge, dear Sir Eric Mate?
I've been known to accept challenges here and there. I've been known to accept challenges here and there. Absolutely. This has been great, Charlene. This has really been great. Really cool stuff here. Hey, for everyone, I don't know if we had hit all the questions or not. I know we're kind of over on time.
Yeah. So when this is over, you'll be able to answer the questions. We're going to end the session now. And if all works well, there should be a lounge in the end. If you want to just pop in and answer questions, we're going to give it a try. Let's give it a whirl. Goodbye,
Yeah,
everyone.
let's give it a
Thank you
go.
so much for all the great engagement.